All right, this is my talk on starting your own charity. I am Corydon 76. First, a very quick disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a tax attorney. I am not a tax professional. I have never been employed by the IRS. So, what I say to you is based upon my own experiences. Some of this may no longer be true. For example, I know, for example, the fees that we paid have gone up since we paid them. So, and any of these will change in the instructions, but if you're going to go ahead and do this, you will read the instructions anyway. So, first, some things. We start off with the organization itself, which is a corporation. The corporation is a separate legal entity. The major benefit of having a separate legal entity is that if you get sued, it's the corporation that's on the hook, and you can say, "Here's all of our assets," and no single person is on the hook. So the president's not financially up for $27 million because somebody sued the corporation. So that's a major benefit there. We start off with nonprofit versus for-profit. There really isn't too much difference, except that we can't go down the road of charity if it's a for-profit. I know some other people around here have tried for-profit organizations for cons. Some of them have been successful, others not so successful. A lot of the part about for-profit is that even though you're allowed to make a profit, a lot of cons don't. And a lot of people resent cons that say they're for-profit because they don't. They're there to have fun. They really don't want to be made a profit off of. The next one is tax exempt versus taxable. You can, in fact, have a non-profit organization that is not tax exempt. It's just a simple matter of the paperwork that you file. Or don't file, in fact. For tax exempt, though, there is a implication for political speech. You cannot endorse or deprecate any candidate. You cannot advocate for or against any candidate whatsoever. You can advocate for issues, but not for candidates. And then when we get down in tax exempt, we go for public benefit versus private foundation. The main thing that differentiates these two is that a public benefit corporation enjoys what is called broad-based public support. And all that really means is that we get our money from a lot of different people. Private foundation gets its money from a small subset of individuals. For example, a homeowners organization association would be an example of a private foundation. It's a very limited group of people who pay their dues, whereas National 2600 is a public benefit corporation. Anybody who walks in the door and pays their admission fee can get in. So that's the main difference. And then our last thing, of course, is charity versus money grubbers. Below a public benefit corporation, we go one further step, and that's a charity status, which means that your donations to National 2600 are tax exempt. And if you start your own charity, that's the same deal. Any donations you get from the public can be made tax exempt. There are charitable contributions, so you have tax benefits for them. There are some main things that you can't do. For example, we can't sell T-shirts and give you the full benefit of the $20 because that's a thing of value. You have anything that you sell, you have to subtract out the actual value of it. What we chose to do, in fact, was just make the T-shirt just merchandise and non-taxable whatsoever. But your admission is fully tax exempt. And when we get into filing for a charity, there are 2 points. There's the state versus the federal. You're going to file your corporation itself with the state, but your tax exemption comes from the federal government, and generally speaking, the state exemptions follow from the federal exemptions. We are income tax exempt as a charity. However, with sales and use tax, anything that we use or give away is exempt from tax, but anything that we sell, to the public, we still have to collect tax on that. Now, as it turns out, for Nashville 2600, we don't sell enough for the state to care. We actually tried to file for a reseller certificate with the state, and they laughed at us. They said, well, you don't make enough money, you don't bring in enough money, just pay your supplier their sales tax and don't worry about it. So we don't have to deal with sales tax in that way. But if you get above a certain limit, you do have to collect sales tax still for things that you sell. In Tennessee, that's right around $5,000. So if you may have $5,000 worth of sales, then you have to collect sales tax separately. But when you get from your supplier, that's also then tax exempt. Before you file, these are the steps that you need to do before you even think about filing with the state or the federal government. First thing you need is a corporate business address. In the case of Nashville 2600, it is my home address. There's no special thing about the business address. It does not have to be a place of business or open 8 to 5 or anything like that. It just has to be a physical address where if the state feels that you have done something that is not allowed, they can come find you. And you can have a mailing address, which can be the same as the business address. In the case of Nashville 2600, it is a P.O. box. And then we get into the interesting stuff. Our mission statement, which is the reason why we exist, which to act as a support group, blah, 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 and hold a formal educational conference each year known as Phreaknic. And the key word here is educational. The educational aspect of Phreaknic is the whole reason that we exist as a charity. And if you want to file your own charity, you have to have an exempt purpose. And I wholeheartedly recommend that you choose education because all the others are really difficult. Then we have our bylaws, which are it's basically like the group constitution. It is who can be an officer, what are your qualifications, what are the duties of the officers, who can be a member, and then the various procedures to dealing with the organization. Brief word about the corporate benefits and responsibilities. I talked earlier about the benefit of being a separate legal entity. The only responsibility you really need is to keep minutes of your meetings and post them where the members can review them. As long as the secretary keeps minutes of your meetings, you're pretty much good. Yes. Yes, everything has to be, in fact, all of these records, all of our records have to be completely 100% open. If you come to our place of business and you say, I want to see your records, I have to show them to you. No, that is only true of a charity. Private foundations don't have to show you. Public companies don't, or private companies don't have to show you. Public companies have a certain level that they must show you. That's governed by the SEC.
About the benefits, you said there's 2 types of charities, by general public and by...
The private foundation does not need to show you their records. Okay. That's not a charity, that's just tax exempt. And then we go and we get to file our charter with the state of Tennessee. This is a 2-page document that the state basically fills out for you. It is dead simple. The cost of doing this is $120 in the state of Tennessee. Check your local state to find out what the cost is. It's $20 for your business name. Basically, it's $20 for them to search and make sure there's no conflicts. And then there's $100 to file your corporation. That's it. For $120, you too can have your own corporation. The other thing that you do need for a corporation in the state of Tennessee is you need 2 people to sign. You need a president and a secretary. They cannot be the same person. You can have more officers, but you need at least 2. I think I also looked into Alabama. I think Alabama you need 3. But check your local state to find out what the requirements are.
I thought you need 3 to be a nonprofit.
No, you only need 2. In Tennessee. Alabama is different.
What's the fund of the person? Can you use a corporation?
No. There must be an actual human being.
How money they can throw in jail? Can you outsource that?
Well, if they want to sign their name to it and be financially responsible, well, I suppose you can do whatever you want. But and then we get to file our personal addresses with the state and with the IRS, so if we do anything wrong, they know who to come after. And there's the second page. The only thing major here different is I'm sure you cannot read that, but it's upon dissolution of the corporation, assets will be distributed to whatever the IRS tells us to, which is basically another charity, the state, or the federal government. So if we ever dissolve, any assets we have left remaining can't go to any of our individual members. They have to go to another tax-exempt entity, which basically is another charity or the government. Yay. Next steps. So you get your federal tax ID number. This is basically like your Social Security number, but it's for the corporation. It is really easy to get. You can call up an 800 number with the IRS, and you can get your federal tax ID number. You may want to get a bank account. Manage your assets. You don't want to be stuffing all your money under the mattress. Besides being really insecure, one of the great benefits of having a bank is that they keep excellent records. So, while I would recommend that you keep excellent records, and I must emphasize excellent records, because it will come in handy later on when you file with the IRS or when you get audited. Yes, as a corporation, we can get audited. Luckily, though, we make so little money that the IRS, we will never hit any red flags with the IRS. And now we get into our fun little discussion of why bureaucracies exist. There was a time, I don't know if anybody's seen Gangs of New York, the movie, but one of the main players in that movie was Tammany Hall, which for many years, 150, 200 years, Tammany Hall basically ran New York City. And it was a very corrupt organization. It wasn't so corrupt in the beginning, but it became very corrupt. Basically, if you wanted something done in New York, if you had friends in Tammany Hall, you could get it done. If you didn't have friends in Tammany Hall, good luck. You can't get it done because you can't get stuff moved through. So you either had to bribe a lot of people or whatever. But a bureaucracy is the solution to this. Basically, within a bureaucracy, there are certain procedures that you must follow for everything that gets done. And if you follow the procedures, you get what you want. ISO 9000, 9001, 9002 are all great examples of this. The ISO 9000 series basically is a certification by ISO that your company has procedures for doing things, and the company follows them. It doesn't say whether the company is effective when it follows the procedures, only that it follows the procedures. And the IRS is a bureaucracy. In fact, it is probably one of the finest examples of a bureaucracy in the U.S. today. and maybe even in the world. If you cross your T's and you dot your I's, you will get what you want. If you don't, they will hold out on you and until you follow their procedures. So, even though we are technically a hacker organization and the government doesn't like us hackers, we crossed our T's and we dotted our I's, and so we got what we wanted. So here's your timetable. You want to be in business, which means collecting money or whatever and having expenses for at least 8 months. If you do not have at least 8 months, you get to submit to the IRS your next 4 years' worth of budgets. But you can't pass the 27-month deadline. If you pass the 27-month deadline, you then have to submit a nice little document to the IRS that says why you missed the 27-month deadline. Basically, the 27-month deadline is from the point that you filed for your corporation, for your nonprofit. You have 27 months to file with the IRS. We got in 26 months and 29 days. So we got in just under the wire, and we did get our very quickly, in fact, much faster than the IRS said that they had to respond in. Your fees. The original fees were that back when we filed were $150 and $500. If you make less than $10,000, that is not make. If you bring in less than $10,000 in total income over your first 4 years, so $10,000 a year for the first 4 years, you get to pay the lower fee. If you can make more than that any one of those 4 years, you get to pay the bigger fee. And we got under that as well. We paid our $150. Now, of course, if you want to file for a charity, it is $300. Non-refundable. However, if you do get not rejected, they have another term for it, which basically means not yet. You can appeal forever, basically, with the IRS. They will never tell you absolutely not. They will say, no, not with the application the way it is currently. Change it and resubmit. And here is our Form 1023, this is the actual form that I submitted, direct copy of it. The organization address, my name, my phone number. Yes, the organization phone number is my cell phone, as far as the IRS is concerned. And I know you can't read this either, but it's basically a lot of yes/no questions, and where in your organizational documents does it say this? And more. This is our first page of explanations. I'm not going to go into this at all. This is the page 3 of the Form 1023. A lot of empty space up there. We don't compensate anybody. So who do we compensate? With officers, directors, trustees, employees, and independent contractors. Top space. None. Independent contractors, none. So we don't pay anybody. So this became really simple. In terms of paying nobody, we really didn't get into it. A charity certainly can pay people, but it will depend upon their total assets. You actually can be a charity and spend 99% of your budget on salaries, but what you get into there is that on the state level, the state looks hard at you when you do that. Anything above about 25% of your total budget, the state will look very hard at you and wonder what you're doing, because your the proportion that you actually use towards your charitable purposes, that is filed with the state. That percentage becomes public record, and people can look up. You can go on the State of Tennessee Secretary of State website right now, Division of Charitable Solicitations, and you can find out every charity registered in the state of Tennessee, what percentage actually goes towards the charitable purposes. And that will affect what donations you get from the public. Because if someone sees that you spend 90% on salaries, that's not really much of a charity, is it? But yeah, so we don't pay anybody, and that makes it really easy. It doesn't raise any red flags whatsoever. And a whole lot more of yes/no questions. There's literally 5 pages of yes/no questions through here, and basically most of them are, if yes, attach a document explaining your position. So a lot of this is check. I have a full page of these things where I just check no, 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 no. Really easy. And then we get into budget. And they give you space for 4 years, but if you've had more than a year on business, but less than 4 years, you're allowed to submit just 3. So we basically had, I think, 1 year projected and 2 years. The first year that we put it out was 06 was the year we filed, and we got the year that we got charity. And some of those numbers are guesstimates. As long as everything adds up at the bottom, they don't care. Etc. And then I get to sign my name that says I testify that to the best of my knowledge, everything in here is absolutely true, and if they catch me in a lie, I can go to jail. So, and there's our user fee stuff. And if you're lucky, you get this nice little letter from the IRS, which is like 5 pages long, but only the first page really matters, that says, yes, you're approved. And then we get down to the states. So we have various departments we get to deal with. We get to deal with the Department of Charitable Solicitations. And the really fun thing about Tennessee is, with the Department of Charitable Solicitations, we fall under their $30,000 a year mark. And what that mark means is that we applied to be exempt from the Division of Charitable Solicitations, which means we don't have to file quarterly reports with them about how much we solicited and how much we made, or how much we brought in in terms of income. And the other mark in there is $300,000, which hopefully none of you will ever see. If you hit $300,000, the Department of Charitable Solicitations requires that you be audited by a professional accountant. Lots of fun there. Thankfully, we fall way below the $30,000 mark, so we don't have to worry about that stuff. And then we have Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue wants to know, you apply for your exempt status. Now, there's tax exempt from the federal government, which means you don't pay tax on your income. And then there's exempt for sales and use tax, which I discussed earlier. Basically means that anything that we give away or use internally is tax exempt. And of course, items for resale we have to collect tax on, but like I said before, we fall below their $4,800 mark, and we don't have to collect sales tax. We just pay our supplier sales tax and be done with it. And as always, other states may have other requirements. Check your local state for what the requirements are. I do know in Alabama, for example, you cannot be exempt from sales and use tax unless you have a friendly legislator that you can get written into law. I kid you not, there are 200 organizations written into the state of Alabama, their laws, that says this organization is sales and use tax exempt. And every other charitable organization that doesn't have a friendly legislator who's willing to write them into the law has to pay sales and use taxes for their organization. And our continuing obligations, we have to file an annual report with the state. This is basically a one-page thing where I go and I say, these are the 4 officers who were elected this year. Here's $20 for submitting this annual report, and that's it. It gets done in about a week. And then for the federal government, you may have to file an income statement, which isn't anything other than here's what we brought in, here's what our expenses were. We fall below the $25,000 mark, which is an important mark because it means we don't actually have to file anything, or we haven't had to file anything in 2006. I am informed, or was informed by the IRS, we'll have to fill out a postcard worth of data. $25,000, you get to file from $25,000 to $100,000, you get to file the easy form, which is 2 pages, just like the 1040. Or if you go above $100,000, you get to file their long form, Form 990. Any questions? So hopefully next year, this time, we'll hear from a lot of people, more people who are filing for their nonprofit status, hacker organizations and maker organizations. Yes?
We're trying to get one, not for a time, but just to be a nonprofit organization. Are you familiar with the Hacker Foundation?
No, I'm not.
They are a nonprofit organization. A bunch of people from DEFCON got together and started it, and they let other groups sign up as projects under them and make use of their nonprofit status.
Right.
Does that sound okay?
Yes. In fact, there's another organization that I'm a part of, which is Software Freedom Conservancy, which does the same thing. They are an umbrella group that gets 501c3 status from the IRS. They have lawyers galore on their staff, and then they take in various open source projects to be component projects, and they manage all the finances. And then if the open source project dissolves, they will either hold the treasury until that project either becomes a nonprofit or it will contribute those funds to another charity. So they make absolutely sure that you are 100% in compliance with the IRS. Because it's not a for-profit corporation, and I use it as basically 99% of my home and 1% of the corporation. It's really all the physical address. All that really is the location where physical records are kept. So if they send an auditor out, that's where my physical records are. I'm not actually open for business. It's just a place where records are kept. So, yes, if I was actually open for business and I was selling merchandise out of the front of my home, yes, I think zoning ordinances would have a problem with that, but we're not doing that. Yes?
Is there a low-cost business banking?
There are various ones. We use, in fact, any of the local banks will do that for you. Pretty much any bank will do it freely. They will open an account free for you, and they will give you a business account basically for free as long as you come in under, like, I think 100 transactions per month, which we come below 100 transactions per year. So anything else?
Banks not offering to provide accounts to nonprofits.
There are some that do that. We found that that actually was not the best way to do it because we like doing things like using our debit card, going to, when, on the 9th floor, all the food and drink. We go to Sam's and we use a debit card, And the bank that we use, if you file for a non-profit bank account, you can't have a debit card. You can have the checks, and you can have you can use checks, but you can't use a Visa card for just direct withdrawal.
If you became a nonprofit name for the refugees and stuff, you contract it out to another body. They're going to be looked upon as.
That's going to be an expense. So then you're going to have an expense related to your charitable solicitations. So that's going to go away from your charitable purpose. It's going to decrease the percentage that actually goes towards charity work. But you can do that, absolutely. In fact, there's a number of organizations out there that use professional solicitation organizations to do this phone solicitations, for example. We don't actually do any phone solicitations at all. It's all web-based or mailing list-based. So it doesn't cost us anything, really. It does cost us to collect for credit cards. It's like 5% for everything. Any other questions? All right. And if anybody else has any other questions, you're free to talk to me afterwards. I'll be near the registration desk pretty much the rest of the con.